Hey guys, I know that this was a series created to make more videos in a short amount of time, but lately I've been occupied by one thing: Overwatch. For those who don't know, Overwatch is a multiplayer team first-person shooter developed by Blizzard, and ever since its announcement I've been seeing comparisons to another well-known multiplayer team first-person shooter, Team Fortress 2. For a while, I thought that Overwatch was going to be a bad attempt to replicate that game, but as it came closer to the open beta release, and as I played it, I realized it wasn't like that at all. I don't like the comparison of Overwatch to Team Fortress 2. I feel that the games are way too different to be considered similar. But there must be some relevance behind these assumptions of the games being the same. I'm going to tell you why the games are not the same, and why I dislike the description of Overwatch being just another TF2. Well, let's talk about the setting of the two games. Team Fortress 2 is set in the late 60s, more in the Midwest America's gravel pits, with more lore and places being added later in the game. Overwatch is set in the postmodern world after a war breaks out between omnic robots and the human race. Of course the story is going to be different. When most people state that Overwatch is like TF2, they're talking about the gameplay, and they're somewhat right, but also wrong. Let's go over the similarities, starting with the game modes. All but one of Overwatch's game modes are shared with TF2, though they do not share the same names. Control point maps, like Dust Bowl and Team Fortress 2, are called Assault maps. Payload maps, like Upward, are called Escort, and King of the Hill maps are called Control. These modes all play very similarly to Team Fortress 2's, including the moving of spawn points for some and certain game mechanics. The only mode that's different is a combination of both Assault and Escort, in which the offensive side must first unlock the payload and then move it. The next big similarity between the two games is the characters to choose from. And I'm not saying that the classes play similarly, but the fact that they're there and the way they are styled is. Team Fortress 2 is memorable to me in the fact that each class was unique and played differently. Each character had a lot of personality added through their ethnicity and interactions. Overwatch does the same thing. I also feel that Team Fortress 2 lost this as the game went on, with each new weapon seeming to dull out the characters, but that's something for another time. And the last big similarity I can think of is the fact that all the heroes come from different parts of the world, much like Team Fortress 2. But this isn't that big of a similarity, as many video games do this, and I could argue that Overwatch got this from Punch-Out! Now, what I've been waiting to talk about, the differences. People say and question if Overwatch is just another TF2, and I say,
the only people who don't like a Krabby Patty have never tasted one!
The comparison to TF2 seems to me like it's coming from people who haven't played either game that much. The similarity is in the game modes and style. The difference is in the gameplay. Let's start with the most immediate difference. Instead of there being only 9 characters to choose from, you now have 21 options. This vastly increases the variation of your team composition. Even with more characters, only a few of them play similarly to a class in TF2, and even then it's still quite different. Whereas in TF2 you can have multiple weapons that you can choose between to equip, as well as secondary items, Overwatch heroes only have their main weapon and several abilities to work with. So, Team Fortress 2's classes can change their loadout in the middle of a match, making them a little less predictable, but Overwatch heroes are stuck with what they've got, and in order to change what weapons they use, they have to change heroes. This is why there are so many heroes. Each one has strengths and weaknesses to all the other classes, and it's up to you to use those to your advantage. This means that when you see an opponent on the field, you know exactly how they work and what they can do. This leads you to developing your own strategy to deal with the enemy, being it by using your abilities to your benefit or switching characters. In one great example of a game that I played, I was McCree and the enemy team had a very successful blockade on the first point of Hanamura. None of our team could get past the Bastions and Torbjorn, and since McCree doesn't do well against multiple people at once, I decided to go Widowmaker to see if I could pick them off from behind lines. Needless to say, it went very well. TF2 is different in that instead of switching characters, you might switch the weapons you're using in an effort to throw off the enemy that you aren't using the same loadout as you used last. Another big difference is that Overwatch has the complete absence of ammo. Now you're thinking, no ammo, where's the challenge in that? And you'd think it'd be stupid, but it plays out very well and ties in with another big difference in the game: pacing. A big contribution to this is that in Overwatch, each team is limited to 6 players. This means that the character you choose vastly affects the team's strengths and weaknesses, and with fewer people, it's much harder to balance keeping the objective and going further into enemy lines. One person dies, that's only 5 more people left to keep the objective until that person comes back. On the other side, Team Fortress 2's gameplay can often become still. Neither team is moving forward, and sometimes the team just stands and guards one point. Don't get me wrong, this can certainly happen in Overwatch where one team completely prevents another team from doing anything, but what I've noticed is that in a game like TF2, on payload, once one side is compromised, the defending team will often move back to set up a stronghold at the next point. But on Escort and Overwatch, I see the defending team running right back up to where the payload is. Overwatch is naturally much more fast-paced than Team Fortress 2, which having no ammo helps. You aren't going into the fight so that you can unload and then run away to try and find ammo. You are constantly trying to engage the enemy to slow them down. In TF2, it can become a let them come to us type of game. And with no ammo, you might think it becomes a spam fest, but it doesn't. Many people don't want to waste their shots in case an enemy comes amidst while they're reloading, because that is when they're at their most vulnerable. Same with the abilities of the characters. Many of them are crucial to the playstyle of that character, and after using them they require a cooldown which balances out the people using it. So in TF2, you can shoot some rounds from your main gun and then switch to another weapon and begin using that. Overwatch, you want to use your abilities to get the best possible outcome, so you're using them in a more strategic bout against players. It may sound way too systematic, but that's what makes it fun. You feel good achieving something that only that character can do, and if you manage to beat someone who has an advantage on your weakness, it's all the better. In addition to the abilities that the characters possess is the fact that all heroes in Overwatch have an ultimate ability. These take a while to charge up and can be game-changing. Team Fortress 2's closest thing to this is the Ubercharge for Medic, and each character has their own unique ultimate. The last big difference between the two games is the style of the maps. Many of the heroes in Overwatch are highly mobile and have the ability to get up to high places, so the maps accommodate for this by having a very high sky limit as well as plenty of buildings to climb on top of. This makes the maps seem much more open than Team Fortress 2's. While its maps are focusing to balance the characters, Overwatch's play off the characters. Overwatch may share similarities between Team Fortress 2, but I feel that the differences are way too big to be ignored and called the same game. Sure, Overwatch looks like it'd be similar at a glance, but when you play it, it feels like something completely different. Will Overwatch be the next TF2? No. Will it be the thing to kill Team Fortress 2 off? I don't know. I don't like the comparison of Overwatch to Team Fortress 2, but at the same time, I don't know what else to compare it to. The story, setting, and gameplay are all different. The only thing that I could say is that they're both fun, multiplayer, first-person team shooters. One that I have had hours of fun with, and one that I can't wait to play some more. Thanks for watching today. I'd like to give a special shout out to my friend Eric for helping me review this comparison. What do you think? Did I gloss over certain similarities or differences? Or do you know of a game that's much more like Overwatch than Team Fortress 2? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time!